Hey, we're doing stand-up shows October 20th through the 23rd in Florida and Buffalo. Go to jimmydorecomedy.com for a link for tickets. This is kind of refreshing, actually. Politico was sold recently, or got bought, by a billionaire, this guy Axel Springer. Politico sells to German publishing giant Axel Springer in deal worth $1 billion for Politico. What? I got to start a frickin' news magazine. Politico got $1 billion? Politico, how much could that place be worth? 10 million tops? They got $1 billion for Politico? Do they even have an office? Refreshingly honest billionaire says media purchase will be used for propaganda. This is from Caitlin Johnstone. She's on one of our faves here. So let's just look what she had to say. Hang on. Let me see if I have anything written for this. I hope so. Oh, by the way, Axel, no relation to Jerry Springer, although you think he would be. Okay. All right. So basically, this is a billionaire saying I shouldn't exist, basically. The billionaire CEO of the multi-billion-dollar corporation that recently purchased the news media outlet Politico has said that its newly acquired employees will be required to support Israel and the capitalist world order. Boy, is Politico going to be a real page-turner. In an interview with the Wall Street Journal, Matthias Dopfler, CEO of the German publisher Axel Springer, said that Politico staffers will be required to adhere to a set of principles which include support for a united Europe, Israel's right to exist, and a free market economy. Wow, propagandists goes on propaganda outlet to let everyone know he's going to do more propaganda. Fantastic. These values are like a constitution. They apply to every employee at our company, Dopfner said. Truth be damned. This is our constitution. It's not about truth. And this is what Caitlin says. She says, how refreshing is that? How often does a billionaire corporation buy up a media property and just straightforwardly tell you that they're going to use it to push propaganda? They even say what the propaganda is going to be. It makes you feel like your intelligence is being respected. And it's a good thing our intelligence is being respected because our privacy sure as hell isn't. Supporting global capitalism and defending the Israeli apartheid regime are both very standard positions promoted by all billionaire media outlets in the Western world. They just aren't as normally as honest enough to tell you that flat out. But I love that they are. Can you imagine if Jeff Bezos had purchased the Washington Post in 2013 and been open about the fact that billionaires need to buy up narrative control to protect the status quo upon which their sprawling kingdoms are built? I just think a Bezos disclaimer would have been epic. It just could have been, seriously, I'm trying to take over the world. Here's my newspaper. I made $142,000 in the minute it took me to write this. As soon as someone rises to a certain level of wealth, they very often begin buying up narrative control in the form of media outlets, conveniently placed advertising in the news media, PR firms, online platforms, funding for think tanks and philanthropy, and other ways of manipulating how people think on a mass scale. This is because if people weren't trained how to think about things, they would never consent to allowing so much of the world's wealth and power to go towards so very few people who are so consistently ill-suited to rule the world for the benefit of everyone. Here's from Time Magazine. The top 1% of Americans have taken $50 trillion from the bottom 90%, and that's made the U.S. less secure. File this under things you won't see in Politico anymore. Let me bring in Max Blumenthal from the Gray Zone, which is, I would say, worth more than Politico, but I don't think you're ever going to get $1 billion for the Gray Zone. Max, what do you make of this?
Well, we're not for sale either. We're not going to sell out.
Everybody has a
Axel
price,
Springer.
Mr. Integrity. Fuck you.
What's your price, Jimmy?
Well, my price is $20 million.
Whatever like Ben and Jerry got for Unilever, I'll consider. From Unilever, I'll consider that.
Okay. All right. So go ahead.
Well, these rules have been on the books since 1967 for Axel Springer employees. Axel Springer was a German center-right publisher who basically is the Rupert Murdoch of his country, and his empire represents sort of the right wing of the German establishment. And I got to know Axel Springer's media empire when I went to Germany in 2015 with my friend David Sheen, who's an Israeli-Canadian journalist. And I went to talk about my reporting from inside the Gaza Strip about the Israeli assault on Gaza a few months before, where 2,200 people in the Gaza Strip were killed, like thousands of homes were destroyed, 551 children, women were killed. It was a gruesome war. And David was going to talk about the atmosphere inside Israel, where leftists who protested the war were being beaten in the streets, and Palestinian citizens of Israel were being attacked. So as soon as we arrived, the Springer Press was already in action with headlines. I mean, we're not talking like page 15, some little bulletin, but headlines. Anti-Semites arrive to attack the Jewish people in Germany. Basically branding us Nazis, two Jews coming to Germany because we disagreed with the U.S.-Israeli Special Alliance or the German-Israeli Special Alliance. That's classic Springer. And I learned about this loyalty oath that all journalists at Springer had to sign. It's not just a loyalty to Israel. It's we stand up for freedom, the rule of law, and a united Europe. So you have to be pro-EU. You have to support this bankers cartel. We support the transatlantic alliance with the U.S. and Europe, which basically means, Berlin subordinates its sovereignty to Washington, and we follow their policies and the policies of the IMF and World Bank. And and then the number 4, we support a free economy. Those are the principles that have been on the book since 1967. So now that Springer is buying up U.S. media institutions like Politico, they also own Business Insider, which kind of tries to be edgy and hires a lot of people out of alternative media, especially some of the worst people that alternative media has produced. They're imposing these loyalty oaths too.
Really?
And so this is our free press. But what I think about it is, they're merely formalizing the culture that already prevails within mainstream media. They're just putting it on the books.
Yeah. I mean, we all know this is how the media in America works, which is why I can have a show and outdo them. Because they start at an end point and then they work backwards writing a story. They start from a point of view, the billionaire point of view, and the conclusion they want, and then they write the story backwards. I don't do that. Right? So that's why I can tell you the truth about Syria. I can tell you the truth about Russiagate. I can tell you the truth about Venezuela. We can tell you the truth about COVID. That's the beauty. We don't do that here. And the establishment media has to adhere to that thing that's always been implicit, but is now being made explicit with this guy buying Political. And I didn't know he also had bought a Business Insider. That's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, his empire owns Business Insider. I don't know how they're going to report on Israeli war crimes, but you pretty much are violating the oath.
That's right.
You do so.
So, I mean, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, they have this tabloid in Germany called Bild, since you mentioned Syria, and their editor-in-chief is named Julian Rupke, and everyone calls him Jihadi Julian because he was the biggest cheerleader for Al-Qaeda in Syria in the whole German media, maybe in all of European media. He even wrote a love letter to the Turkish army as it was rampaging through northern Syria, like slaughtering Kurds, committing heinous war crimes. And of course, the Turkish army was basically the uniformed wing of ISIS throughout the dirty war on Syria, just letting them cross the Turkish-Syrian border, rearming themselves, bringing their oil into Turkey that they stole from Syria. The editor-in-chief of Bild said this: "I want to thank the Turkish army the soldiers who sacrificed their lives on the ground and the soldiers that decimated the regime army from the sky. You were heroes and gave hope to millions in Syria around the globe. You were not defeated by Russia, Iran, or Assad, but by Erdogan, because Erdogan pulled out the soldiers during an offensive. I mean, this is insane. And this guy is in charge of one of the largest tabloids in Germany. And this is really consistent with the prevalent ideology of Springer Media that, is coming stateside. Not that it would be very different from anything that anyone already thinks at Politico.
We have a billionaire-run culture, ladies and gentlemen, and that's what's happening. You have a handful of billionaires that can control the entirety of the culture, of the narrative, and
Yep.
that's why people they sound ubiquitous. There's no difference in the news coverage from ABC to CNN to MSNBC, and you get a little variation at Fox. But they are horrible in another way. So, but they all serve the billionaire class. That's the thing to remember. Fox News, BuzzFeed, Politico, The Intercept, the New York Times, MSN, all of them, they all serve the billionaire class. And that's why they all are in concert to always undermine the lefty, whoever it is. When it was Bernie Sanders, they all said they'd vote for Donald Trump. So this loyalty to the Democratic Party is a one-way street. You have to have loyalty to the party. They don't have it towards you. So if you're to the left of them and you win, they screw you.
I mean, if you look at the economy right now, for the first time, I think the top 1% controls more wealth in the United States than the entire middle class. And that is a direct result of the pandemic, the restrictions, the lockdowns, the destruction of 200,000 small businesses, the controlled demolition of the economy by our elites. And then they had the Fed basically dope Wall Street, not the economy, with a bunch of fake money that they just print out of nowhere. And it all goes into the hands of the elite. And what do they do with the money? Well, two principal things they do with it are buy up media, like Jeff Bezos, who made out like a bandit during the pandemic did with the Washington Post. And they also start these charities like Bill Gates has, so they can kind of wash their money and write it off as tax exempt. According to a report, I forget who wrote the report. It was reported on in The Guardian. $1.5 trillion is in the hands of elite-controlled, billionaire-backed foundations. And what they do with that money is they create experts. They fund the experts who are then quoted in the media that they own.
That's
and
right.
They create this echo chamber that defines reality. And then if you diverge from their narrative, they say you're not part of the reality-based community.
That's right.
You're an anti-Semite because you oppose the transatlantic alliance with Israel. You're an Assadist because you oppose the dirty war on Syria. You're a Kremlin shill because you question the Russiagate narrative. You are an anti-vaxxer because you're asking where all the money went under COVID and questioning the phony science that they're feeding us to push universal mandates and passports. All of these names are reserved for people who question the narrative that is being spun out by the billionaire class and filtered down through the experts that they pay, through the media that they own. And that's why you're filling such an important void, Jimmy. That's why we have alternative media, because the policies they're pushing don't work for most people. So people are looking for a reality that fits their own lives.
And that's why they have Facebook pretending to doing bogus fact checks on our videos. And we'll have that video be released tomorrow, or I think we're on Rumble. So we're going to be moving over to Rumble as our home base because censorship is real. And
you're leaving YouTube for Rumble?
No, I'm not leaving. I'm going to stay at you. I'm going to stay everywhere, but we're just going to make Rumble like that's going to be the first place we post. So when I drop a video, it'll be dropped at Rumble first, and then it'll be dropped at YouTube later on. So that's just because they've given us a promise of no censorship, and so a lot of people are going there, right? Like Glenn Greenwald is there, and who's the British comedian guy?
Russell Brand.
Russell Brand is there, showing his chest hair, and I mean, he can show all of it over at Rumble. No censor on the chest hair. He even shows nipple. That's what I hear.
Well, I mean, I went to Rockfin because I mean, I have a show separate from Moderate Rebels called Foreign Agents because YouTube will not allow us to diverge from the COVID consensus.
Right. It's very tough. So, I mean, you know, it might not seem like it, but the way we present these stories about COVID and the vaccines we're very careful that we do it in a way that doesn't get us censored. But again, they can just like Facebook just said that our video was misleading or not accurate. They just made it up. It's not real. They're wrong. And they start from a conclusion. Jimmy Dore has to be stopped, and then they try to find a way to do it. And wait till you see the video; it's hilarious. We're doing stand-up comedy in Florida, in West Palm Beach, and Dania, and then we're going to Buffalo, Baltimore, Tempe, and Portland. Go to JimmyDoreComedy.com for a link for all our tickets.